Congratulations, you did it. You completed the application process. You got all your transcripts in, your essays done, your application submitted, and you've just been waiting, probably impatiently, for those decisions to come in. Well, now the wait is just about over. You should have heard back from all of your early application schools, whether you applied early decision or early action in the first round of applications. Now, hopefully, there are some thick envelopes in there, but if you reached for any highly selective schools, there are likely some denials in there as well. Denials are just part of the process and part of life. And if you didn't receive any denials, then perhaps you should have reached a little further. However, the more likely outcome from the early round of applications is the deferral. And so today I want to talk a little bit about what is a deferral, what does it mean, how is it different from a wait list, and where you need to go from here. Hi, I'm Nick, founder of Dawes Academic Consulting, and I help students navigate the college admissions process in their junior and senior year of high school. So, what is a deferral? A deferral is essentially the college saying, we liked you, you were competitive, but we didn't select you in this first round. We want a chance to come back to your application and look at it with our regular decision applicants. And it's important to keep in mind that this is not a reflection on you as an individual. Just to use an example, USC admits around 2,900 students in the early application round. But how many apply? 1,000. There is a tremendous number of possible combinations of 2,900 students out of the 41,000 that USC could use to create a really compelling and strong freshman class. The fact that you might not have been picked for that 2,900 says nothing about you as an individual. It's just how the college decided to assemble their class for the first part of the application process. They're still going to admit another few thousand students in the regular round, and you could potentially be in the regular admission pool as well. Usually, when this happens, it could just be that there were too many qualified applicants, which is what most colleges will tell you. It could also be that they had one or two questions about your application and they want to see more information. So they're going to get things like your first semester senior year grades. They were going to see an update on any activities or accolades or awards or test scores and that sort of stuff. And we'll talk more about that later. But it's important to remember that a deferral is not a no, even though it might feel like a no. A wait list, on the other hand, is a little bit later in the process. This is after the college has finished their regular decision round of applicants and they've basically selected the class that they want to select. If you were still a competitive applicant that the college was really interested in, you just weren't selected. Like I said, there's a thousands, if not millions, of possible combinations of students that could create a strong and compelling class. So if you weren't selected for that class, but you could have been, the college might extend you an offer of being on their wait list. A wait list could be a couple hundred students, it could be thousands of students. It really depends on the college. And what this means is that the college is waiting to see which students say yes back to them. And this is something that we call yield. So a college like Harvard had an 87% yield or 85% yield 2 years ago, meaning that for every 100 students that Harvard accepted, 85 of that 100 or 87 of that 100 decided to actually enroll and attend Harvard. So, in order for Harvard to get the 1,500-ish students that they need, they only need to admit 15% more than that. This is partly what contributes to their really low admission rates. But other schools don't have an 85% yield. That's incredibly high for the industry as a whole. Other highly selective schools have yields in the 70s, and other schools have yields that are far lower. And so what's going to happen is they admit the students that they think they need to admit in order to fill their class. But if the yield is lower than they expect for some reason, then they will still have empty seats after all of the students have either accepted or declined admission. That's when they go to the wait list, and they're looking for students who are going to fill in those gaps in their class and that are likely to accept admission if they are let in off the wait list. So they might look and say, oh, we need more students in this particular major, or we need a student that fills this particular role on one of our teams, or that plays this particular instrument. It really depends on what the school needs and which students elected not to enroll. And then they'll go to their wait list. Some wait lists are ranked, meaning the first person on the wait list is the first person they ask. But more often than not, the wait lists are not ranked. They will dig into that wait list and look for the kind of student that they need in order to fill the gaps in the university, and then offer that student admission. And if that student declines, maybe they already picked another school and they weren't really crossing their fingers that hard for getting in off the wait list, then they'll go to the next student who sort of fills the same gap or a similar enough gap, and they'll keep on going until they fill all their seats. It is worth noting that wait lists are kind of precarious. There's no guarantee that we'll get in off a wait list. And in some years, wait list activity is really, really high, and in other years, it's really, really low. And we can't predict how that's going to go. You can look at how wait lists have been used in the past, but that's still no guarantee of what's going to happen this year. I will say that it's been my observation that waitlist activity has increased since the pandemic. I think part of that has to do with uh, over enrollment at some schools, and so they've become a little more conservative in their yield estimates because they don't want to over enroll. And so they've been using wait lists a whole lot more and then very slowly accepting students off wait lists. But there's no guarantee that every school operates that way, and there's no guarantee that will continue to be the case. So when you apply to a college early, but you are not accepted early, you will receive a notice of deferral. This means that they liked your application enough. They think you're competitive, that you could be successful at their college. That's why they didn't outright deny admission to you, but they want more information and they want a chance to look at the regular applicant pool to see how you compare to other students in the regular pool before offering you admission or deciding what to do with your application. A waitlist, on the other hand, happens at the end of that regular decision process where they've accepted the students that they think they need statistically in order to fill their class, but you were still a competitive applicant that they were interested in. You just weren't in the mix for that particular class, or sorry, that particular version of that class. And so they might offer you a spot on their wait list. If you are really truly interested in being at that university, it makes sense to add yourself to that wait list and just see what happens. But there's no guarantee that you will get in off that wait list. At some schools, waitlist activity is really, really minimal. And so it's not something that you should really, really rely on when you are waiting to decide which school to enroll in. Next time, we'll talk a little bit about next steps. You've been deferred, so now what? We'll talk about things that you should do, things that you shouldn't do, and how to put together all the pieces that you're going to need to submit what's called a letter of continued interest, or if you're in Michigan, an expression of continued interest. And then in another video, we'll talk about how to write a letter of continued interest, and I'll give you some general advice on how to put that little essay or that letter together. But for now, I wish you well. And remember, if you got deferred, it is not a no, but it's also a sign that we should be looking at the other schools that we got into as well. And I will see you next time.
So, if that video helped you, then please help me by liking, sharing, and subscribing or following on whatever social media platform you prefer. Doing so really helps allow me to do what I like to do, which is help students and families manage the college application process. And if you're looking for more targeted support yourself, there's a link in the description that'll allow you to book a consultation with me, and we'll see how I can help. It's free. Anyway, thanks again for watching.